Hello, you're watching Vnews Bulletin. I'm Ba Ria from Manu, and now the headlines as usual.
Foreign investors pour $8.55 billion in Vietnam in Q1. Tourism in Ba Ria-Vung Tau faces difficulties amid COVID-19.
Foreign investors poured a total $8.55 billion in Vietnam from January the 1st to March 30th, equivalent to some 79% of the same period last year, according to the latest report by the Foreign Investment Agency.
Of the figure, $5.5 billion was registered to invest in 760 new projects. The rest were poured to increase capital of existing projects. The realized capital was estimated at some $3.8 billion, 6.6% lower than the first quarter of 2019. The Republic of Korea was the largest foreign investor in Vietnam, followed by Japan and Singapore. According to the Ministry of Planning and Investments forecasts, Vietnam expected to attract $38.6 billion from FDI in 2020 if the COVID-19 pandemic was over in the first quarter, and $38.2 billion if the pandemic lasted to the second quarter. Vietnam targeted to attract $39.6 billion from FDI in 2020 when there was no COVID-19.
Fitch Solutions has recently revised down Vietnam's economic growth in 2020 to 6.3% from 6.8% previously due to the COVID-19 outbreak.
In a report on the outlook for emerging markets, Fitch noted that Vietnam had low fiscal flexibility given its high public sector liabilities to maneuver with regard to policy, which could limit the size, speed, and effectiveness of the responses. Fitch also downgraded the growth of other emerging markets, forecasting that the pandemic would pull emerging markets' growth down to 2009 levels. According to Fitch, the combination of financial market stress hitting emerging markets, less policy space, weakening external demand, and a rising number of localized coronavirus cases will weigh heavily on growth.
Lychee gardens in Hai Seng province are often in full bloom in February and March. During this time, bee breeders from across the country often bring the insects to those gardens. The activity not only brings sweet income from honey, but also helps bring lychee farmers a bumper crop few months later. Join us to know more.
Trần Văn Hưng has traveled with 300 beehives for hundreds of miles from Gia Lai province in the Central Highlands region to Thanh Thủy Commune, Thanh Hà district, Northern Hai Dung province, so that the insect could collect flower nectar. The bee owner pins high hope on this trip, as the weather now, in his opinion, is quite favorable.
We have been here since mid-February, right as lychee growers inform us that flowers have started blooming.
According to bee breeders, time for bees to collect lychee blossom nectar is much shorter than most other flower species. Thus, letting bees sipping lychee nectar could bring the breeders quite good income, despite slightly lower economic value.
We often come here in February to collect lychee blossom nectar. Afterward, we head back to Tuyên Quang province to do the same with acacia trees, then Lao Cai province for ditch grass.
Thanh Hà district is now home to 3,600 hectares of lychee gardens to feed the bees. By consuming flower nectar, bees not only produce high-quality honey for domestic consumption and exports, but they also bring benefits to lychee growers, including boosting pollination and killing harmful insects.
My family also consumes lychee flower honey and sells the product to local consumers. We use around 1 kilogram of honey a year.
The hustle and bustle of Thanh Hà district recent days signal a bumper crop for not only bee breeders but also lychee growers.
The COVID-19 pandemic and deepening global economic uncertainty are putting great pressure on Vietnam's local currency bond market, according to the Asian Development Bank.
In the latest issue of ADB's Asia Bond Monitor released recently, ADB reported 10-year government bond yields and 2-year government bond yields of Vietnam declined 50 and 20 basis points between 31st December and 29th February, respectively. According to ADB, the pandemic and deepening global economic uncertainty are also weighing heavily on local currency bond markets of all the East Asian economies. Several central banks in emerging East Asia have cut their policy rates to mitigate the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, including mainland China, Thailand, Indonesia, the Republic of Korea, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China, and Vietnam. According to ADB, the size of Vietnam's local currency bond market slipped to $53.6 billion at the end of December, down 3.9% quarter-on-quarter, but up 4.1% year-on-year.
Foreign enterprises operating in Vietnam in the areas of electronics, automobile assembly, garment and textiles, and others are seeking local partners amid the outbreak of COVID-19 epidemic in a large number of countries across the world. According to the Ministry of Industry and Trade, some foreign direct investment enterprises are seeking domestic supply of raw materials, which is a unique opportunity for Vietnamese enterprises in supporting industries to prove their capacity, thereby joining the global value chain. Despite all the increase, insiders raised concerns over shortage of raw materials for production. If the epidemic continues for a few more months, raw materials will also become scarce, posing difficulties to supporting enterprises. Besides, the number of supporting enterprises admitted that they cannot produce many types of items due to a lack of machinery and the low skill levels of workers. Therefore, it requires long-term solutions from the government to support the development of supporting and basic material industries. A survey by the Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers found that the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic was hitting seafood companies hard, especially since the beginning of March.
The association said that most seafood companies saw declines of 35 to 50% in orders due to cancellations, delays, or shortages of raw materials. Exports of trout fish to China have stalled since January, and exports to European Union markets were also encountering difficulties in March as the bloc closed its external borders. Statistics from the General Department of Customs showed that seafood exports totaled more than $990 million in the first 2 months of this year, a drop of 11% against the same period of 2019. The Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers urged producers to focus on improving the quality of trout fish to promote exports to the United States from next year.
Tourism is among the sectors being hardest hit by COVID-19 pandemic, causing headaches for both firms and authorities. Here's a report from Ba Ria-Vung Tau province. Deserted beaches, hotels with only 5 to 10% of rooms filled. The tourism picture in Ba Ria-Vung Tau province is forecast to be even gloomier due to unpredicted developments of COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism firms in urgent need of local government assistance.
Many enterprises are now subject to high land tax. I think the government should think of waiving or putting off tax payments given the pandemic. The same move should be applied for personal income tax and corporate income tax.
In view of the COVID-19 situation now, of course, all the hotels are badly affected, even in the resorts like Vung Tau. We used to have a lot of guests, but now the occupancy has dropped drastically. Over the weekends, we used to have something like a 25-30% now, and weekdays is even worse. So hopefully things will improve and situation will also improve.
Our department had discussed and came to a conclusion on financial assistance for firms, including cutting loans interest rates, extending payment dates, and capital assistance.
Given the rapid spread of COVID-19 in over 160 countries worldwide, foreign tourists are dropping. Instead, the local tourism sector is pinning its hopes on domestic travelers.
We have introduced promotions and also promote the locality as a safe and friendly destination. Safety is the key in this situation, not the number of tourist arrival.
In response to the pandemic, travel firms have been striving to cut costs and asking their staff to take more non-paid leave. However, in the long run, experts suggest travel firms and local governments join hands to promote the province as a safe destination, while coming up with effective measures to boost tourism growth once the disease is cleared. To prevent the novel coronavirus from spreading, many entertainment venues in Vietnam have been closed, activities cancelled, placing artists in abeyance.
In affected localities throughout Vietnam, such as Hanoi, Hue, Ho Chi Minh City, and Binh Thuận Province, authorities have shut down vulnerable public spaces and suspended entertainment activities. For the past week, cinema visits have dropped, dragging down domestic box office revenues. Though rigidly scheduled contracted programs such as TV game shows still proceed as usual, many artists say music shows and plays have been either cancelled or rescheduled. Other artists have found more simple ways to fill up their time. Some have opted to stay indoors or record songs and shoot MVs to prepare for new releases when the outbreak subsides.
And that's wrap up our news bulletin. Thanks for watching and see you next time.